Hi everyone. Tonight is the night before the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. Now we're meant to have clear skies tonight, but if you can see, we're pretty overcast at the moment, but there's still plenty of time. I've just came outside, got to put the telescope out to acclimatise to the colder weather outside. Obviously with it being inside, the air inside the tube here is a lot warmer than the ambient air outside. So I've came outside a good few hours before the conjunction, just to allow the air inside the tube to get colder and for the image to be as clear as possible when I hook the telescope up to the laptop via the planetary imaging camera. So I'll leave this out for a good couple of hours. What I will do though is take the batteries out of the camera here, because I don't want the batteries draining with the cold weather. I'll take them inside and then put them back in when it's time for the image the planets. So I've cleaned the optics, I've cleaned the front glass of the telescope, I've made sure everything's working, I've made sure the batteries are charged, I've charged the laptop, obviously to hook the planetary imaging camera up, and I'm going to go and do a prayer for clear skies. I'm not, but I trust that the weather forecast will be accurate and that it will be clear enough to allow for some good images of the conjunction. Now tomorrow night is the actual conjunction of the two planets, where they'll be closer together than tonight, and the closest that they'll have ever been for 800 years. But I'm not taking any chances. I want to try and get some good images of them as close as possible, because the weather forecast for tomorrow night isn't meant to be clear. Now that could change, and I'll do this process all over again tomorrow should it be clear skies. So yeah, just a few kind of preparation tips. Get the telescope if you've got one outside, get it cooled down if you're going to be imaging any planets or stars or galaxies or anything like that, just so it doesn't, the warmer air inside the scope doesn't affect your image. Make sure you're prepared, get your batteries charged, get the optics cleaned down if they need it. Plan where the planets are going to be. In this case, they are going to be about there in the sky, just over the back garden. There's a big field at the back of the house. There's houses either side, but there's a huge field over the back. So when I set the telescope up just over here, I'll more than likely put it out one of the bathroom window, because it's a bit breezy and I don't want that kind of affecting the images either. The bathroom window, I'll have the telescope kind of perched on the window ledge there, looking out over that field, and because there's no houses directly over there, there'll not be any kind of heat distortion from the houses either, or if there is, it'll be quite minimal, again because I want to try and get the sharpest image that I can possibly get of the conjunction. Alright folks, cheers. Well, after some pretty big downpours, it looks like it could be clearing from the southwest. Cheeky gap in the clouds, hopefully for to see Saturn and Jupiter. Waiting. There's Jupiter, the skies have cleared. As you can see, huge kind of shower clouds just heading off to the south and the east. And then Jupiter has just came out from evening twilight. So I'm just setting up the telescope is lovely and cool. I've just had it outside for the past few hours under cover with the rain and whatnot. I'm just going to put the camera in to see what it looks like, and then I'm going to get the laptop hooked up and then try to get some really good images of the conjunction. It's all pretty exciting. Okay, I've aligned the telescope with the moon. You can just see Jupiter just here, and I'm gonna type into the control panel and the telescope is going to automatically guide to Jupiter and Saturn. This is so exciting, honestly. Oh my god, they look unreal. Oh guys, I can't wait to show you this. Oh my days. Alright guys, so the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn was spectacular for to see. It was really gobsmacking, really. I didn't expect to be that awestruck by it when I actually looked through the telescope, and it's a good job I did look on the night before the full great conjunction, just simply because the weather on the date of the great conjunction itself, you had no chance of seeing it. The weather was terrible in the UK, so photographing it the night before when the planets were nearly at full conjunction worked perfectly. The only thing that I didn't mention when I was actually filming the conjunction was that I was exposing the planets differently. So for Jupiter, I was using a lesser exposure, simply because the amount of light coming off the planet, reflected obviously from the sun, is greater than Saturn's. So Jupiter is essentially brighter than Saturn. So I had to underexpose Jupiter to get some detail, which worked really well. I took those images, those frames for Jupiter. I think I took about 50, and out of that there was only 2 that actually showed some detail, like I've just said, because there was low pressure over the UK. The amount of atmospheric disturbance was phenomenal. 2 frames were useful for Jupiter, as you've seen in the image. I then had to do a separate exposure for the moons of Jupiter. And again, I didn't take 40 or 50 frames for that, just simply because you can't see any detail of the moons through my telescope. They were just simply pinpricks of light. So there was Callisto, there was Ganymede, Io, Jupiter itself, and then a great surprise was Europa coming out from behind Jupiter, which was fab to see. And then I can't pronounce the other moon, Alma something, right? But that was the other moon. So I took a separate exposure for that, for the moons, and then ramped up the exposure a little bit to get some detail in Saturn. And Saturn was surprisingly clear. I took, again, about 40 frames for Saturn. Again, not the clearest images that I've ever had of Saturn, again due to the low pressure and atmospheric turbulence, but that turned out all right as well. So what I've done with those 3 separate exposures was blend them in Photoshop to how they looked in the night sky, just in one single image. Now, some people will say, well, that's a composite. It is a composite, absolutely, but it was a necessary one. Otherwise, Jupiter would look far too overexposed, because you were trying to expose Saturn correctly, and then you wouldn't get any of the moons, or you'd get really quite overexposed moons rather of Jupiter. So to get detail in the planets, it was necessary to take 3 separate exposures, which I'm perfectly happy with, very happy with, in fact. I know some people missed the conjunction. It was just potluck, really. We had really nice clear skies here in the northeast. I'll mention low pressure one more time. It's just a bit of a bummer, really, that we had low pressure. Otherwise the skies would have been perfect. The planets would have been crisp sharp. But never mind, we got to see it. It was well received with the people that follow the page and whatnot, and I hope you've liked the video. It was all a bit of a rush, which I wasn't expecting. I had everything planned, everything went everything was going all right, and then when I realised how quickly clouds were rolling in that weren't expected the day before the Great Conjunction, it caught me off guard a little bit, which it shouldn't, because the weather in the UK is typically unpredictable. But I had such a much smaller window of opportunity to see the planets than I wanted. I wanted to do a live stream on Facebook for people to see, which I didn't get to do, unfortunately. But looking back, things worked well. I feel like me planning kind of worked well for the images. And yeah, if you do have any questions on how to photograph planets or night sky photography, get in touch, leave a message, leave a comment, give us a like, give us a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to, and have a lovely Christmas. Cheers, guys.